Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Career Talks Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Orlando Haynes. And you always hear me say this. I'm excited. I'm super excited. And I continue to be so just because the amazing guests I get to network with and can network with here on this podcast and the LinkedIn platform. But before I belabor this long intro, I want to make sure when you folks tune in, let us know where you're coming in from. If you've seen the title of the show, it's having authentic and courageous conversations with my guest, Britton, Bloch. Definitely have your questions prepared. This is going to be truly an authentic conversation. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We just chatted about that before. There's no pre-script, no preset questions, just one or two to get us going. But other than that, it's going to take its own life and journey down the road. So we hope you take that journey with us. But before we get started, I want to absolutely thank tonight's sponsor, which is Agape Career Counseling Group, where their focus is helping you discover a career you love. And that is led up by no other than a good friend of mine named Deborah Russell. She's a certified executive career resume writer and a career coach. She also does HR and small business consulting. She's right here located in Florida in the Tampa Bay area where I'm sitting currently. So definitely reach out to her. And her website is agapeccg.com. That's agapeccg.com. So thank you so much, Deborah, for continuing to support the podcast. And let's get on with the show. So this individual, as you see, Britton, I met her, or when I say I met her, I came across her from a different podcast that came across my feed. And I think what drew me in was just what the title alludes to, just being extremely authentic. She shared her journey, and we'll get into that as well. So she is currently, which was super cool, this too, because I'm a veteran. She's in talent acquisition. She's the current vice president of talent acquisition and head of recruiting for Navy Federal. Well, I am currently a member. So that ultimately drew in me into her, but also just the way she just exposed who she was on the podcast and was truly authentic. That captured me very, very quickly. I knew I had to speak with this young lady. So without further ado, let's bring on Miss Britton Bloch. How
Orlando,
are
thank you. Hey, thank you for your
you?
service. It was good to
Thank
know.
you. Thank you so much as well. Thank you for joining us. Your team was absolutely gracious and very cool putting this together behind the scenes, connecting with me and making those conversations happen so we can get you on here. Long await. It seemed like it took forever, but I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited for our discussion.
Absolutely. So first of all, just share with folks who are tuning in and everything more about your background and who Britton is.
So, who Britton is? Well, the first thing I'll mention is I have a son, Nick. He's 21. He's at University of Central Florida. He's an amazing human. So, biggest accomplishment of my life. And I have been in recruiting since 1990. Absolutely love it. It's interesting because talent acquisition has taken so many twists and turns, and now we're in a very volatile market. So it's been a fun ride. But yeah, so I've been in recruiting since 1990. I had my own firm for 13 years. I went corporate in 2003 after having my son, Nick. I was a single parent, so it was very logical to go corporate. And then I've learned a lot. So I've been with Fifth Third, Marriott, IBM, USAA, and currently I'm with Navy Federal, which is truly a blessing. I love the culture and it's very mission driven. So what's special about Navy Federal is not only that it's mission driven, but it's also not for profit. So it's been the embodiment of true servant leadership. So I've been really excited and I have joy every day. I like it.
That's cool. I didn't know that about Navy Federal. They were not for profit. Didn't know that.
It's neat.
Awesome. Awesome. That's good to know. And you said, I'm not sure if you mentioned your son's name. Did you?
Yes, his name is Nick,
Nick. That's right.
computer science major. I have to brag about him for a second. This was
Go right ahead.
Yeah, he did. So they have this foundations exam, And
Mhm.
it's a 5-hour exam for all the years that he's been doing computer science. And
Wow.
he texted me and he said, Mom, I was top 10% out of 800. I'm like, dude,
Wow.
you better be interning at Navy Fed. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
exciting.
impressive. That's impressive. Is the son is the only child?
Yep. Nick is
Smart.
my only one.
Got it. Got it. Wife and I, we have brace yourself. We have 5 daughters.
Oh my God.
Yep, 2 in college. One finishing her last year, and then 2 in 8 and 6. So the ages are 20. About one's about to be 19, 18, 8 and 6.
Orlando,
Yeah.
I need to learn from you. Oh my gosh. Oh my
You
God.
need to learn from my wife. That's yeah. So this is my outlet. I don't know.
Oh my
Again, this is my
gosh.
man cave outlet to deal with that. But I'm definitely a blessed man.
Yes.
Definitely outnumbered for sure, for sure.
Oh
But
yeah. Wow. Five daughters too.
mhm,
Oh my
mhm.
gosh. You've
All
been through it
girls,
all.
all girls. So thank you for folks who are tuning in. I see a combination of your audience and my audience, which is pretty cool using this platform. Jim, Farrar, always tuning in. Appreciate you. And Lori, thank you so much for joining in. There's a way that I can bring the chats in automatically. I don't like when it stacks the thing. So we're going to keep it this way now. Just throw them up on the screen. So with this topic, having an authentic and courageous conversation, I want to also ask you, where did that come from? Where did the epiphany come from when you knew you had to have that in your career? Like, what you got a great career journey, and I'm sure at some point it was like, I got to face this. Like, what was that process like for you?
So I actually remember the pivotal moment. It was about, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. And I was interviewing for an executive role. And one of the panelists said to me before I interviewed, I don't think that you have executive presence. I'll support you interviewing, but I don't think you have the executive presence. And I thought to myself, well, I've been invited in, I was tapped to interview, and I feel pretty good about, my leadership and how the teams feel and, the performance and results. I've had record breaking years. So I thought, what is executive presence? And
Mm,
so then my wheels started turning, and I thought, well, to me, it's not really executive presence, because for me, executive presence, that kind of screams elitism. It propels that hierarchical environment, and it blocks courageous conversations, because when you keep saying executive presence, that creates a very unsafe environment where people are afraid to speak up. So, following that moment in time, oh, and by the way, I got the role. So, there you go.
bingo.
And I was myself. And I think at that moment in time, I made the decision I was going to be my authentic self, because leadership to me is somebody that's relatable, inspiring, empowering, lifts others up, is a servant leader, serves as an ambassador, removes roadblocks. It's not really about executive presence. It's about leadership presence and paying it forward and being a servant leader and authentically caring about your team. So, from that day years ago, every day forward, I have been myself. I'm not going to say that it hasn't gotten me in hot water. It has. Um, but even interviewing for Navy Federal, I was very determined to absolutely be myself. I wanted it to be a really good fit, and I got really lucky, because the person that I report into, Holly Courtwright, she's the CHRO. She is very authentic. She's got a laugh like no one else. She's innovative. She's fail fast, fail forward. She leads with grace. She authentically cares about people's well being. She listens to the employee's voice. It's so interesting in organizations, a lot of people follow what's legally defensible or what legal counsel says. Navy Federal does what's right by the employee, and they really do listen to the employee. But the other thing I like about Navy Federal that's fueled me to continue on the authenticity and courage path is that I am fully embraced for who I am, and what I bring to the table is valued and appreciated. And the other part that has been new to me that I love, and Holly introduced it to me, is the concept of culture add instead of culture fit.
Love it.
Yeah. So, when you're doing culture ads, that's when you bring in the diverse experiences, skills, backgrounds. And it also elevates skill based hiring to mitigate degree bias. I am so impressed with those that attain their higher degrees. I have many friends with PhDs, but I'm also a big believer in activating new channels and honing in on underrepresented communities and communities at risk. Um, I know this is a long answer, but I just have to share this. There was a gentleman in the late 80s that I had met at church, and he actually was the coach for Oscar Robertson, but he was a fantastic man. He really took me under his wing. I had a very unstructured background. I have a very interesting background, a scrappy background. And he showed me, he taught me about work ethic, budgeting, finances, recognition for the right reasons. And he really invested a lot in me. And I really actually attribute a lot of my success to him. And when I wrote my first book, I actually dedicated it to him. But I think what that taught me was it's really important to invest in talent communities and to support and help people because I want to pay back what was done for me. But you can only do that if you have an authentic approach. You have to genuinely care.
I love that. I absolutely love that. One of the things you pointed out too, because when you were talking, was the showing up, the executive presence. That definitely puts a stigma when you hear that.
Mhm.
More of a cookie cutter type look. I think
Yep.
when folks say that, and if I can be so bold, it's because we're having an authentic and courageous conversation. Immediately for me, it says older white male, suited and booted. This is the look we want you to have, the
Yep.
pedigree, et cetera, et cetera. And we're so far removed from that in the workplace nowadays. So yeah, that's a key point, and I like you chose to show up authentically. You chose an authentic presence versus the executive presence, which is who you are. So, and then you also mentioned your background, a scrappy background. Share what are some things you drew from that scrappy background. I can see your brain already turning like, oh boy, that you're using throughout your career, even today. That's helped you.
Yeah. So I grew up with an artist. It was very unstructured background. Very good-hearted person. EQ was coveted most, which I still embrace fully. I love EQ. Um, so when I was in college, which was amazing that I even got there to college, uh, I had 3 jobs. I worked at Procter& and Gamble on the toll-free line, the line that
Hmm,
the tapes don't stick, diaper line.
okay.
And then I had a tutoring company for differently abled children. And then my 3rd job was cocktail waitress in a bar called Hot Shots working for a guy named Bullet. So I was an English major and I was reading Chaucer at 2 in the morning with beers getting dumped on my head.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I went to a recruiting firm to find a recruiting job, but they recruited me to be a recruiter. Um, and this is in the days where, this was 1990. So there were no computers. I still had a Rolodex. I had a paper planner. And I remember they threw the yellow pages at me. And for those that don't know what that is, that's a paper directory. It's about this thick. And they said, good luck. And so my first client was AllNet because I just started cold calling and I started with the A's. But I think what my background taught me, I have zero entitlement. I'm very grateful for everything I have. Although I could lose everything tomorrow and I'd still be happy because I grew up, there were times when I was eating Rice Krispies with water,
Mm.
um, pudding with mold in it. My mom was an artist. She was a graphic designer. She's a fine art painter. Again, a great heart, but very unstructured. So it was a scrappy background. And that's, I think, what feeds into showing up as yourself. And I think that when you have authenticity, courage, you're genuine, it translates into your work ethic, and just naturally you grow in your career. But it's not because of an agenda. I'm not shark-like. There's no toxicity to me. It's just hard work and genuinely caring.
Love that. So with that, with your mom being more, like you said, an artist and free spirited, do you find yourself, are you a very structured individual, or do you prefer that mix of, I need to have my creativity space so I can just flush out some ideas and almost whatever sticks, and then we kind of put the wheels on as we're going. What's your method to your madness?
So I have intense work ethic, that I can say, but I do fly fast, and I'm a big believer in failing fast and failing forward. I love innovation, I love strategy, and I'm okay failing because I'll learn from it. Um, but in work, so you've got the very regimented work ethic, but then you've got the innovation. So that's the creativity and the inspiration. And I'll always do the art of the possible, and I encourage that with my team. Let's try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll learn from it. But personally, I do love to paint. I spent 3 days this weekend on my 3-day weekend, 10 hours a day just painting. What I like to do is I made a commitment for this year. For every person that made a difference in my life, I was going to create something just for them, whether it
Oh
was a
wow.
painting. Yeah, it's been really neat. And it's neat to gift them because they're very customized paintings. And when they receive them, just to experience their reaction, it's just, it really fills your heart.
That's pretty cool. I got to get on that list. It's going to take me some time, but paintings by
Working
Britton.
through it.
Paintings by Britton. So I love that. So we do have a question from the audience. It's Jeanette, and thank you for tuning in. Janine,
Jeannie.
Jean Hertz. Thank you for tuning in. She says, "Why do you feel leaders choose not to have authentic, specific conversations to grow their team members?" Hmm.
So I think in many environments, speaking up isn't encouraged. Progress over perfection isn't encouraged. Failing fast isn't encouraged. I've actually seen, even to this day, like, I'm a big believer in forward feedback. I think feedback is a gift. It shows that I'm invested in you, I care about you. But I don't see it happen a lot. And I think that's a disservice to people. I genuinely feel like people are still healing from that ultra hierarchical environment where you had expectations to act congruent to a specific role. And the whole executive presence topic that's been hammered into so many people's brains. And then the whole plague of imposter syndrome,
Mm.
it blocks open conversations. And it's interesting because when I joined an organization a few years ago, I came into a team that it was crickets. I mean, I'm not kidding you. And then they got to know me, and they realized the more they spoke up, I rewarded them. The more they gave me feedback, even if it stung, I rewarded them. The more they
Mm.
tried things, I rewarded them. And then by the time I left that organization, oh my God, team meetings were chaos. They were all fun fast. But I came into Navy Federal, and it's interesting. I think Holly Courtwright's really made a difference with, that innovation and the safe spaces, and whole person leadership and wellness. But even with my current team, they're still gently getting to know that it's okay to speak up, and they're learning that. And so I do skip levels and roundtables.
Mhm.
And the first round around, I've been there almost a year. The first round of roundtables, I was like, oh, geez, okay, I guess I'll just give updates because no one's talking. But then I'm doing roundtables recently, and oh my gosh, it's like blown up. So I'm like, okay, this is progress. This is good. This is
That's
good.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you said something, Key. You said forward feedback. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like I'm going to take it let me go back a step.
Hmm.
So, a lot of times what team members experience is every one-on-one they have with the leader, they'll hear, "You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great." And then at the end of the year, they have a performance review and they're surprised by feedback, or they didn't get the, I hate this term, rating they wanted, which impacts them financially with a bonus. So, one, I believe in real time feedback. So, that's for sure. By the end of the year, no one's ever surprised by my write up for a performance review. And I have them do a self assessment too. But forward feedback is where I'm seeing something and I will proactively reach out and say, hey, let's walk through this. Let's talk about this. And we will. And I've had just recently, there's one leader, he always has courageous conversations with me. And boy, I thought to myself, oh man, this guy's going to be tough. He's going to be so tough. We've gotten really close because we have really healthy conversations about feedback towards me and towards him. And he responds so well to the feedback, and I've just seen such a difference. But you know what? I've responded well to his feedback too, and
Mm.
I'm grateful for that.
So is it the theory behind forward feedback, kind of like one negative, two positives, or how is that in the language? What does that look like in terms of language that you're still going to get the most? It's saying, hey, here's some areas of correction, but they walk out still feeling empowered.
Well, I think if you explain the why behind the
Hmm.
feedback, and usually the why is associated with their talents. So when you're highlighting their talents and you're associating the feedback with the why, like, hey, I'm bringing this up because I love that I don't like the sandwich effect. That seems kind of
Hmm.
schmoozy. Um, but I just think you have to establish the why and tie it back to their talents. And then they feel so good about, oh my gosh, I am so high potential. And this feedback is to make me better.
Hmm.
And I mean, Orlando, I get so thrilled having a team that embraces feedback. And I invite the feedback too. This isn't a one-way street. I ask for it every time I have a one-on-one. What feedback do you have for me? And sometimes it stings, but I know that's because they care about me.
Yeah, and one of the questions, I love that, because one of the questions I do when I first take over a team or build a team is, how do you want me to manage you? Because if you take that, paintbrush effect, thinking, hey, it's going to be this way, and I know I'm more tuned in as someone just on personality, right? The diversity in your group, you got to know some people are just not money motivated. Some people are not like the five love languages. Someone are more, they love words of affirmation, gift giving, whatever it is, personal time. But it's trying to really uncover what really drives your folks, and then that's how you can lead them. And I'm learning as I go, even though I've been in management for a while. But you just continue to learn because it's a new group of people. The society and the culture becomes so, we're so sensitive and keen to certain things, and you have to evolve in your thought process, I think, now, in how you truly lead. You can't lead how you did 10 years ago now. It just doesn't work. So I love that it's more, hey, you're human, you got issues, I got issues, give me the feedback. Oh, didn't know that. That's a blind spot for me as your leader. I need to learn it. So that's cool. A lot of questions are coming in. Let me get to Carl for tuning in. Thank you so much. Carl had a question, I believe. That's Farah. Thank you so much. Thought I seen Carl. Carl had a question. Let me get to Carl. I thought I seen the question from you, sir. If I missed it, I apologize. Oh, here we go. With vulnerability being an essential part of growth, what do we fight doing? What do we fight doing it as leaders?
I think it's hard to
Mm.
be vulnerable. It's interesting. I'd sent an article to a couple of my peers last night. I think it was last night. And it was on imposter syndrome. And I just loved a message that I saw on LinkedIn. And the message was from this really talented professional. Her name's Amber. And the post said, yeah, I was interviewing at Google. And when I walked in, there was a big sign on the wall that said, if you're here, you have the experience. And I was like, oh God, I love this message.
Wow.
And then she went on to explain why it was so important to her. So I shared the message, and it was about imposter syndrome. And I ran into my boss today, Holly, and I said, God, I just love that message. And I think that, like, I can share with all of you, I have imposter syndrome. Sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, I hope I'm doing the right thing. I hope I'm not blowing something up. So I think when you're vulnerable, that's what establishes trust, because that's what makes you human. I do believe in being vulnerable. I believe in being transparent. And when I have roundtables and skip levels, I'm the first one to be accountable for my opportunities. And I think when you show that vulnerability, it just creates a safer space to have that healthy conversation. And then if you do have real-time feedback, it probably sets the stage for them to embrace the feedback more readily, because I'm accountable for my opportunities and I'm very open about them. So, but it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. There's some pretty judgy people. It can be, well, I mean, sometimes companies can be a shark tank, but I'll still be vulnerable because I just want to be myself. And I also think whole person leadership's important. Like, double clicking on what you said. If you are a whole person leader and you really get to know the people on your teams, not just your direct reports, but your entire team, that's how you're able to lead, because you understand each person's needs and what's important to them. Because to your point, there's no peanut butter spread.
Right. It's uncovering those superpowers for everyone in this, and really trying to pull those things forward. And I like what you said there is that the imposter syndrome is, I don't know anyone, obviously you don't know everyone, but anyone who doesn't go through that, because as you're put in different situations in corporate, you're right. You immediately thought, your immediate thought is, am I smart enough to be in here? So, right. I listen first. I'm like, and your mind is racing with a question or a point you want to make. You're like, okay, do I say it this way? Do I say it that way? Make sure my cadence is right and it doesn't come off aggressive, or does it, because you could be passionate about the topic and you're like, okay, I won't say anything.
But you know what, Orlando? Do you know what perpetuates that?
What?
Is when you have some bruisings from some poor leaders. So if you've got poor leaders that haven't lifted you up, or haven't they haven't maximized your strengths, or they're trying to have you be who you're not. Like, okay, so I'll be vulnerable right now. I am all about innovation, heart leadership, servant leadership. I do have an opportunity. I'm a good consumer of data, but I'm not wired to be this super powered data person. And often in my career, it's been pushed at me so hard. And that made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Whereas I love when a leader appreciates what I am bringing to the table, and then maybe helps me grow in areas that are opportunities. But I think when you have a leader that is constantly honing in on your opportunities, you do start to have self-doubt, and then it just keeps growing. So I'll admit to you, joining Navy Federal, I'm surrounded by very empowering leaders and very kind people. I mean, sincerely kind people. The culture is its sweet spot. And so I feel like I've been through a bit of healing, being surrounded by those types of temperaments. My confidence has come back super strong. And once that confidence got rebuilt and the healing happened, now I'm discovering talents that I didn't even know I had.
Wow.
And so I'm like, oh, wow. It just makes such a difference to have a positive, good person, good hearted leader. It makes all the difference in the world.
I love that. And you hit something key because I'm the same way. I can understand the data, but don't come to me to put it all together. I'm not that behind the scenes Excel, VLOOKUP, pivot tables, and crunch it. And I'm like, I'll give you my resignation right now. That's not going to happen, right? So
Well,
let's be
what's
honest.
funny? Yeah, I do a report every week to the COO, and
Hmm.
he said to me, "Britt, this is off by 1%." I'm like, "God, that's pretty good." Like,
Oh, that's
yay
hilarious.
for me! 1%. I'm making
That's
progress.
right. That's a win. That's
Yeah.
a win. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So, and it's funny because I recently looked over a Burke assessment of that I taken and really honed in on where it says, I guess my strongest skill sets. And you said it earlier. I'm the creativity guy, willing to try new things, especially when this talent acquisition space. Digital marketing, be more forward facing on social media, and being back into the community.
Mhm.
I can come up with a ton of ideas. The Sometimes you're reticent on bringing forth those ideas in certain organizations because you don't know if their thought process matches yours. You got companies that still are kind of antiquated even through this pandemic and thinking, nope, this is the way we're going to go. We're like, well, is that yielding the people we need to hire? Are we meeting our hiring goals? We need to try something different. So, and that,
100%.
yeah, so I
100%.
learned that about myself through that. And that imposter syndrome is so key because day by day in conversation and meeting and sitting at the table, you start to learn a lot more. And then let's be honest, right? uh, Being completely authentic in different companies we've worked for, you're like, why are they here? Sometimes you get that, you're like, no, they shouldn't even be here. I'm okay. Yeah, they should not be in that role. So,
Yeah, but you know what's funny about that? Like, I was just talking about this the other day. I always find the great something good in
hmm
each
hmm
person, because there's always going to be people that you're allergic to. But I do think it's true.
yeah,
But I do think there is goodness in people. You just have to find it.
absolutely.
And when you meet the one that has like absolutely zero, I'm like, oh shoot, that's just evil. Yeah. So
Carr had another statement here. It says syndrome is a byproduct of unhealthy culture and leadership. Yep, people have been systematically and subconsciously, taught to devalue others with the culture, and that doesn't allow the safe space for mistakes, learning, and growth. That
agree. Yeah.
is correct. Will project their own insecurities inside a workforce for whatever reason, stifle growth, stifle innovation. So that's something you have to look out for, especially now, right? Because people are jumping ship. The Great
Well,
Resignation.
in Orlando, the whole point behind having a team
Hmm.
is one, I always hire people that are smarter than me. So that's smart by myself.
Yep.
I get points for that. But the whole point in having a team is to have diverse strengths so you can maximize each other's strengths. Not one person is going to have it all.
Correct. Correct. It's funny. One of the things I used to say when I went on an interview with my direct, supervisor was like, I was like, my job is to make you look good, so to be smart for you to hire me, right? Because I would come in there super confident in the interviews and really turn it into a conversation and take it off the interrogation table. So, and that
Well,
always
that's
kind of
smart.
won, yeah, always won people over. But um, talk to me about where you had an account, and obviously no details, but where that conversation that you had to have went left, either with a peer, direct report, or someone you reported to. The outcome wasn't what you expected, but you trusted your gut and still was like, you know what, this needs to happen.
Yeah. Actually, it happens quite a bit because um, I do believe in direct feedback, and I am not an unkind person. And when I share feedback, it's because I truly am invested in that person. I'm very, very happy with where I'm at in my career. There's no agenda.
Hmm.
So when I give feedback, it's meaningful, actionable feedback. And I think what still surprises me is when, and I'm patient with it because I want to give grace. Because because I do think it's a growth opportunity to embrace feedback. But I'll admit I've been tested at times where you have the same conversations over and over again, and it's productive feedback, but it hasn't been actioned, and that's frustrating because I don't think many leaders have the courage to give feedback or invest in those development conversations. And so, it is an investment to do it.
Mhm.
And so when it's met with, oh, I don't know, I've had people
Mhm.
smirk at me. I mean, that's disheartening, and it's kind of soul crushing because you're doing it for the right reasons and you want them to be so successful and you want to see them thrive, and it's so rewarding to see someone grow.
Mhm. Is it
And
is it
so I will try every way. Mhm.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Do you think that it's fear why a lot of leaders are somewhat hesitant to have that difficult conversation of any kind of, not so much backlash, but the relationship and productivity or what have you? Because even though we're talking in terms of work, how we are at work in terms of difficult conversations, that's our core. That's who we are. And even in our personal life, we're still hesitant to have those same conversations, right? So, what do you think it is, at least in terms of the workplace, from a leaders that you maybe got some feedback on, or?
I think there's two things that are happening. I think teams are super, super stretched. Resources are lean. A lot is flying fast. There's a lot of pressure. And so a lot of conversations are isolated to workflow conversations. It does take investment of time to set aside a development conversation, but you
Mm,
do need to make time for that. So I think that prevents forward feedback because things are flying so fast. They're just dealing with the deliverables at hand instead of pausing and having that meaningful conversation with a team member. I think the second thing, though, and this is a little bit of a controversial topic, I think people are scared of ER. There there's a lot of leaders that get escalated to employee relations, and so leaders, they walk on eggshells. So for me, I 100% have the conviction that whatever feedback I'm given is sincere, genuine, authentic, and if somebody reacts in a way that's not optimal, uh, I feel comfortable with the feedback that I've given. So, but I do think those are the two things. I think things are flying really fast, and it does take time to give that type of feedback. And I think a lot of leaders are scared of, as you said, backlash.
Got it. So I'm gonna put you on the hot seat a little bit.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, if you were given an opportunity to be the chief, authentic, and courageous conversation officer, what would be this brand new, you know, role created? What would Britain do in terms of educating not only the leaders on being more forthright with that conversation, and then the employees receiving? And obviously, it goes both ways. But what would be some areas you would touch on first on educating us to not be afraid to have those conversations?
Well, so I actually have these conversations weekly, not daily. That would be a little extreme, but I do really consistently refresh the topic of please set time aside for development conversations. Please do not just keep it work related. It's not fair to the person. It's a disservice to the person. I also think that if you reward and recognize healthy behaviors, healthy leadership behaviors, it's a force multiplier. So as you reward and recognize, it just starts to catch like wildfire. But I also think you need to be very intentional to not allow toxicity in the workplace. I'm really allergic to CYA. dysfunctional behavior. Uh, I just and it's interesting, if a leader allows that type of behavior, that is the quickest way you're going to lose your following. And
Got it.
people see it.
And that's true. I like what you said about rewarding good behavior. What are some ways that you've done in the past or presently that you've seen, the ROI on your rewards to those folks?
Well, so we have there's two things. So each week, the people leaders give me their weekly update, which is probably kind of a pain for them, but I read every single item. Like, it's not just an exercise in futility, but I have on there what I call kudos corner.
Mm.
So the kudos corner for their direct reports, they put down, call outs on what they've done great. So I do two things. I send a note to that person saying, hey, Paul gave you a shout out for XYZ, and I'm so excited. That's so great. Thank you for this. But then also, we have a system called Celebrate You, and you're able to send e-cards. You can also
Yep.
send points, so they can, add the points up. But for every single kudos that I receive, and I have a pretty big team, so I do this on Saturdays, I send e-cards. Now, if it's something that I've been trying to reinforce and really have this behavior multiplied, I'll send reward points. So it's like, leadership is like parenting. You want to catch your kids at doing something good and you want to reward it. Yeah.
I love
So,
that.
and then
Wait,
when you're good to your team, they don't want to disappoint you. It's like children. Nick, he wrote a paper on this when he was a junior. I never raised my hands or voice to Nick. No one should be proud of not raising their hands, but I never raised my voice either. And his motivator was disappointment. But I think it's the same with a team. If you have that trust and you've been a servant leader and they know you would go above and beyond for them, they want to make you proud.
I like that. So when it comes to, and time is flying by, man. And so when it comes to having those courageous conversations, obviously, and this is my way of thinking, it's a different tone or maybe nerves that build up when it's a direct report and then who you report to. Talk to us about the variance in those situations and just your journey and how you felt like, okay, this is a little different now. So, you know, before I can somewhat navigate the conversation, make sure it tries to have a positive outcome. You don't know if the leader who you report to has that same mindset. So if you have any stories around that, if you can share with us.
Well, there's something that Holly does that I really love, and she does the 4 L's. I hope I can remember them right now, or else I'm going to be embarrassed. But it's love it, leave it, longing. Okay, I forgot the fourth one. But it's a great springboard for the conversation because I like the leave it part. And it gives you the opportunity to, I guess, give upward feedback. So now I will say in the past, because again, I believe in healthy relationships and positive, productive relationships. I've never refrained from saying, hey, I just want to share that made me a little uncomfortable. And can we talk about this? There's not many leaders that have received it well. But the thing is, I can put my head down at night with a good, clean conscience and know that I spoke up. And so I feel good that I spoke up. And then it's up to them to own it or have a conversation. If they disagree with it, let's have a conversation about it. But yeah, I think that's what a healthy reporting relationship is giving and receiving feedback. But
I love that.
it takes courage. I mean, it does take courage. Yeah.
It does. So with the 4 L's, is that you giving feedback to your leadership? Okay.
Yeah.
So they're asking you, what do you love? What do you want to leave?
What are you
Um,
longing for?
mm.
And then
And
I forgot the fourth one. I'll get back to you on that.
No
Not now,
problem. I
but
love that.
later.
Yeah. Later. So when they're asking those questions, because I like this a lot, is they're asking you what you love about the job specifically, or
Anything.
okay,
What are you loving right now?
okay,
What are you
okay,
longing for? And what could you leave? And so it just, well, for me, it opens Pandora's box. I'm on a
yeah.
roll. I got my L's all lined up.
Like how much time we got? Oh man, that's good. Okay, yeah. Please let me know what the fourth L is.
I
I'll
will.
think about it. I'll take a shot at it and send you a message if I'm correct or not. But
Okay.
what is some last bit of advice? Because we're coming up on the hour, and I know you're super busy. Let's last piece. Let's switch. How are you leveraging now talent acquisition? Because you lead up talent acquisition. What are some of the practices that you're empowering your team? And I want to make sure I ask this question correctly, or should I say, how are you having those conversations with your team that they feel energized to go out and still fight the fight? Because we know it's a difficult market, right? Um, what are
Oh,
some tactics that you're using there?
well, there's a few. So, one, I think it's super important to create internal mobility. So, over the past year, I've added layers, I've added new roles. Um, so that's been really exciting to the team to know aspirationally. Oh my, because TA is pretty flat. You're either a recruiter or you're a talent acquisition coordinator or you're a people leader. Like there's really
Hmm.
not many. So we added trainers, talent scouts, business operations analysts, program managers, executive specialized recruiters, internal mobility. And then on top of that, it's so much fun to create new programs. So, by example, we're standing up the internal mobility program, and it's in partnership with talent development. And so that was really exciting. And also, I think that it's a great way to invest in your talent instead of competing for your talent. And then in partnership with learning and development, having those upskilling, reskilling opportunities, but having that focused team that's the conduit to opportunities across enterprise. But I also think the other exciting thing that's been transformation with the team is really encouraging horizontal partnerships, cross functional partnerships, but also we created functional alignment pods so they can really know their business, know their leader, know their talent, but also understanding that their efforts, they are enabling enterprise strategies.
Mm.
Their efforts are directly enabling and impacting enterprise strategies. And so that has really created a new level of energy to know this job is not just smile and dial. They're not just recruiting. They are at the table with the business. And, by creating those functional pods with them becoming experts in their area, their craft elevated, their business acumen elevated, I mean, that's really rewarding. And it's a huge sense of pride. It just puts more texture to the job and it's more aspirational.
Absolutely love that. Love that tremendously.
Oh, and this is exciting too, Orlando. Wait, I have
Yes,
to tell you about this.
I'm taking notes. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I have this really cool leader. His name's Will Usher. He is like fantastic. And so we're really excited to really elevate and enhance the new channel activations. So above and beyond HBCUs, above and beyond underrepresented communities, like we want to open, neurodiverse channels and differently abled channels. And then really elevate the skill-based hiring. So the certification programs, the coding academies, and really tapping into different talent communities. So that's pretty energizing. That's been fun with the team. Yeah.
I like that because you're looking to position Navy Federal as obviously a preferred employer because you have so many options that you're touching the community in so different ways.
Yeah.
And absolutely love that. Love that. Last question, because I want to again be mindful of your time. What is your personal mantra?
Mm. Well, other than authenticity and courageous conversations, I really love stay in the deep end.
Mm,
So stay in the deep end. keep stretching, do the uncomfortable, do what's hard, learn, fall down, get back up. But that's my thing. Stay in the deep end.
I love that. I love that. Well, I hate the fact that we got to go, but I want to be respectful
Oh,
of your
that's
time.
it. No, wait, hold on.
Was it?
There's
You found
more
it? Learned?
else. Loved,
Oh,
loathed, learned, and oh my God, it just went away. Where'd
here,
it
I'll
go?
find it. I'll find it. Here we go.
Loved, loathed, learned, and longed.
Got it. Like, love, learn. Oh, is it lacked? Did you
I
say
said
lacked before?
loved because
Okay, we'll go.
I'm like that mushy, vibey person.
Got
Love.
it. Awesome. Okay, awesome. I love that. I love it. I like it. Some I'll leave, and some we can. Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Thank
Britton,
you, Orlando.
for doing this for me. And I love, and I say this sometimes too. This podcast was created, to provide actionable advice for job seekers. But the learning and the network that comes from having a platform like this, I absolutely love. I'm so glad that I'm part of your network, and that I look forward to seeing your journey, some of the things that you're doing over at Navy Federal. I'll be completely honest, Navy Federal, I'm going to be stealing some ideas. So if you see it repeated on
Awesome.
my feed, I will tag Britton on that for the spark of inspiration. But thank you so much for your time,
Thank
your
you,
authentic
Orlando.
self in conversations. I'm gonna close this out with a quick video, and then 2 seconds chat behind the scenes. Then I want you to enjoy your evening, if that's okay. For folks, if you have continued questions and comments for Britton, please make sure to tag her in the replay. And if you have questions, I'm sure she'll find the time to answer those questions as well. All right.
Orlando, thank you so
Yes.
much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hold on 1 second for me.